Hello, my spooky friends. My name is Lena, and welcome to the Pumpkin Pages. So this week, I'll be reading some horror movie-based books. I've got a good stack of books here that I am going to recommend, and then I have a few books that I will pick out. Then I would like to share some new upcoming releases based on that movie genre. The first book here I have is When Ghosts Call Us Home by Katya de Becerra. So I read this book earlier this year, and I can tell you it is a 5-star read. It was also incredibly creepy. The parents were working on renovating Cashore House, so they were there for a year. Then Sophie's older sister Layla suddenly had the great idea of filming a horror film. She delved into the history of the Cashore House and what happened there, and she felt inspired and decided to pick up the camera and film her sister around the house. It was an amateur film, but it was surprisingly really successful. The film was called Vermilion. It is named after the spirit that supposedly resides there. Sophia doesn't really remember what happened. A lot of fans that call themselves V fans because of Vermilion just say that of what happened, or a lot of the scenes, was real and they weren't stunts or acts. And a couple years later, Layla goes missing. Sophie tries to forget about it until she sees a picture of Layla online, and the last picture of her that she saw online was her sister entering the Cashore House. So she has to go back. Then she hears that a director wants to make a reboot of the film Vermilion, asked her to come back as one of his cast members. So what happened to Layla? And be warned to never look into the ghost eyes, because if you look into her eyes, that's how she gets you. The next book I'm going to recommend is Dead 11 by Jimmy Giuliano. So this book is about an island who has a strange obsession with the year 1994. So here we follow a woman named Willow, and she is a grieving woman who just lost her son. She kind of goes through this routine of cleaning her son's room as if she's expecting him to come back. And then one day she mysteriously finds the words Clifford Island written in the bottom of his floor. She has never heard of the island before, so there's little information in the internet, but then she decides to go ahead and go to Clifford Island, which apparently is a tiny peninsula off in Wisconsin. So when she gets there, she finds that the residents there are kind of a little weird. They are, for one, obsessed with 1994, and they kind of do the same things over and over again. For example, there are two neighbors who walk in front of their mailbox and check their mailbox at exactly the same time. People walk a certain parts of the street around the same time. So why are people reliving 1994, and why are they dressed the same? And most importantly, why are they obsessed with the O.J. Simpson chase? Well, then suddenly Willow goes missing, and her brother Harper decides to go to Clifford Island because that's when he heard she last went missing. And there he discovers what really is going on and what are the motives behind the people and why they are reliving 1994. This book just this book was amazing. I could not put it down the moment I picked it up. You just fly by this book. You go through like Willow's journals and her emails and just different things that different sort of media. And yeah, you get to discover why it's called Dead 11. Trust me, you'll want to pick up this book. You would not regret it. And of course, I cannot forget to mention My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. So I'm sure most of you know what this book is about, but in case if you don't, this book is about a group of girls who go out in a lake. One of them goes missing for some time, and when they find her again, she starts to act really weird. From being completely depressed, not showering, not really socializing, and then she just acts like a completely new and different person. So her best friend starts to suspect that she might be possessed. So honestly, most people really love this book. It just wasn't the book for me, but still, it was a good read. So this next book is called Mr. Magic by Kirsten White. So this book is mostly about a TV show than a movie, but hey, still have to include it, right? So who is Mr. Magic? Well, apparently it was an old TV show, and there was 6 friends who were cast members, but then something tragically happened. Then the production and everything that happened with the show was shut down. Only 5 cast members remain. 30 years later, people still remember Mr. Magic and the circle of friends, but nobody can find any footage about the show. They can't find out who produced it, who was a director, and most of all, who was the host, who was Mr. Magic. And all they have is just memories of the TV show. Until fate brings the cast members back together in a remote desert to film Mr. Magic. And even though they haven't seen each other for so many years, they feel like they still feel connected because of the show Mr. Magic, and they feel like they understand each other better than anybody else could. But soon they're going to start to discover who Mr. Magic really was. Soon they start to discover the mystery behind Mr. Magic and his black cape. But as they start to reclaim their past, start to wonder, are they there by choice or is it a trap? The next book I have here is Night Film by Marisha Pessel. So this book is about a journalist who is searching for the truth about what happened to this beautiful young woman called Ashley Cordova. She was only 24 years old when she presumably had killed herself. She was the daughter of a famous movie director called Cordova. Only the journalist doesn't believe that she committed suicide. He thinks something bad actually happened to her. So as the journalist tries to piece together what happened to this girl, he is also captured by the Cordova family and the films behind apparently this man who seems to be psychotic. Another great thing about this book is that it's got some mixed media on it. So here is the news report about Ashley Cordova's passing, and there are some comments right there, and this entire book is just like the journalist piecing together about what happened and such. So sorry, it seems like most of the thing here we have like part of the internet page, but yeah, it's pretty cool when authors go through the extra mile of trying to, you know, piece together a book like this. Some text messages, some more news articles. Anyways, be sure to pick up your copy of the Night Film as well. So the next book I have here is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. So this book I actually talked about in my previous video, but I wanted to mention it in this video as well. I am currently reading this book and I'm 75 pages in and I'm hooked. So in case if you didn't watch my last video, this is about a group of siblings who come together because of their mother's passing. One of the siblings, Beth, she is there when her mother dies. She was basically there the entire time, and she's the one who nursed her mother while she was sick. And her mother said, "Your father didn't disappear. Do not trust." So what did she mean by that? So apparently the siblings' father disappeared at one point in their lives. He just wrote a note to the mom saying, "I'm sorry." That was pretty much it. So the siblings actually grew apart. The brother basically went on to make a better life for himself, and Nicole, she basically became a drug addict, and they kind of cut her off because she was just toxic. And Beth was the only one who really stayed with her mom and stuck around. As they're going through the mother's belongings, they find a box of VHS tapes. So they decided to sit down and watch one of these tapes just so they could get a break from basically everything that was going on. One of the tapes was called The Summer of 1999. And at first the tape plays just like a normal day in their lives until when they catch a scene that they've never seen before. Their father is covered in blood, and the father says that it was an accident and that he needed her help. As you can imagine, it was quite a shock for the siblings. So what do they decide to do? Should they go ahead and investigate? Were their parents involved in a murder, or was it really an accident? Why didn't they just report it to the police? That be the reason why their dad left that many years ago? Like I said, this book has definitely got my attention, and just thought I should recommend it to you guys too. So the next book I have here is Silver Nitrate by Silvia Moreno Garcia. So this book is interesting. This is about a cursed film. So this book is about a woman called Montserrat, and she works for basically the sound effects in movies. So she's often overlooked because she's a woman. She isn't offered many job positions because she's a woman, and she has the feeling that her boss is gonna let her go sometime, even though she is probably one of the best sound effects creators out there. And then one day she gets a call from one of her best friends and says that she has a chance to go work with him and this legendary director on this horror film that he tried to make a couple years ago. The director hopes that in shooting this film that the curse will lift. Only Montserrat starts to notice that a dark presence is following her, and so her best friend Tristan starts to see the ghost of his ex-girlfriend who died many years ago. So they have to work together to solve the mystery and find out about the occultists that roam the city. So soon they will discover that sorcerers and magic are not just based on films. So this is actually also in my TBR this week. I am currently 50 pages in, and so far so good. So the last book or physical copy I have right now, funny enough, it's not called Memories Video Cassette. This is just a cover, but it is called Found, an anthology of found footage horror stories. So there's not a whole lot to say about this book, but there's 18 stories of found footage horror edited by Andrew Cole and Gabino Iglesias. So yeah, I just saw that it was recommended by Mother Horror, and just wanted to show you guys that too. So The next three books I'm going to talk about, I don't have physical copies of because they have recently been released and I haven't purchased them yet, or they're soon to be released. So firstly, there is Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. Ironically, it is also a curse film sort of type. So in June 1993, a group of guerrilla filmmakers decided to take 4 short weeks to film a horror film. Only 3 scenes only made it to the public. Nevertheless, it got really popular, and 30 years later, Hollywood is pushing to reboot the film. They actually managed to get one of the cast members to come back and play the part, and apparently he is the only one who survives. But as the filming starts to progress, he starts to remember what really happened and perhaps something demonic was occurring. So yeah, this is just another good twist between cursed cult films. So the new book coming down by Ransom Riggs, I am just gonna post it right here because that is a tongue twister. The Extraordinary Disappointments of Leopold Berry. There, hopefully I got it right. Book seems more fantasy related than it is horror, but I just wanted to go ahead and talk about it. So apparently this is about a 17-year-old named Leopold. He gets really obsessed over this fantasy series that eventually starts to make him hallucinate. Like, he starts seeing a man put a tooth in a parking meter, he sees a glowing trapdoor in the middle of the city, and then he also sees a raccoon whose tail is caught on fire. And it seems to follow him wherever he goes. Only he starts to have these visions, or he starts hallucinating in the most worst possible moments. But soon the boy discovers that the world of Sunder is actually real, and the city of Los Angeles is actually stranger than it seems. And it turns out that that world of Sunder is in danger, and apparently he is the chosen one to free this world. And Leopold wants to prove himself worthy of being the chosen one and wants to prove to his father that he is not a disappointment. So the next book that I am looking forward to read is How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive by Craig DeLuey. It's about an 80s horror slasher director, and apparently this is supposed to have dark humor in it, but apparently he wants to make the most terrifying horror movie out there. And of course, the best horror movies out there are the ones that are real, right? So he wants to pick up an occult camera that is possibly demonic to film this movie. The book is also about a girl named Sally who dreams on becoming the final girl. Sure, lately she's been cast as small roles, but she knows that she has the potential to be the final girl, and she hopes to impress this horror film director in his latest film. Then Max comes across this occultish looking camera that he knows he has to use for his next film. Only it came with a warning, and apparently sometimes this camera wails. But by the time Max finds out what evil entity is attached to this camera, it could be too late, and at that point he's already dead set to finish this film, and Sally has to prove herself and prove to others that she is the final girl, whether she likes it or not. So anyways, my friends, those are all the books that I am hoping to read and some few books that I recommend. Are there any horror-based books that you recommend for me? Let me know by commenting below. This week I thought I should also dress in 90s fashion to kind of go with this. So today I'm wearing a floral dress with a white t-shirt and a denim white jacket. See how you can put it over your shoulders as well. But it is so stinking hot out, so I might as well just chuck it to the side. I'm also wearing some ankle socks and some gray tennis shoes. And because I'm a thick girl, I have to wear shorts under my dress. As Rachel Masky says, I don't want people looking at me bum. I can imagine this girl being the kind of popular girl in school who doesn't want other people to know she likes to read. Here I'm wearing some light blue eyeshadow and pink, and some blush and some pink lip gloss. My hair, I kind of just put it in 4 pigtails. I honestly don't even know what's the name of this. Fashion. So today I went for a grunge look. I put on a gray beanie and wore 2 braids. I'm also wearing a Nightmare Before Christmas shirt as it came out in the 90s. I also tied a plaid shirt around my waist. I'm wearing gray denim jeans that I'm sure my mom wore back in the day, and some ankle black boots. Yep. So I figured a person who dressed like this in the 90s, I think it's called the grunge/goth look. I have pretty simple looking makeup. I just wore a little bit of eyeliner and mascara and a little bit of blush. The person mostly likes to spend their time alone or with or be in the company of dead people. I figured these people like to spend most of their time reading horror movies or books. You know what they really need to do, Billy? They need to make a more accurate version of Dracula. Most of the Draculas out there, they make a romance between Mina and Dracula when in the book, that is not at all what happened. In fact, in the book, they hated each other and were trying to fight against each other. And the thing that kind of drives me crazy sometimes is that vampires are scary. They're monsters. They're not supposed to be sexy. They definitely sexualize vampires, but I don't think that was Bram Stoker's
nice
original idea for vampires. But hey, I mean, I guess it makes money, and a lot of people like sexualizing vampires, and if that's your thing, you know what, you do you. But I think we just need a more accurate version of Dracula. So if you guys need a movie idea, please just go back and read the book. So today is day 2 for my horror movie books reading vlog. Today most of my plans are just to stay at home, catch up on some laundry and some chores, and do some reading and maybe do a little bit of painting later. So tomorrow I'd like to do a little ghost investigation. Peddler's Mall is like an indoor flea market. A flea market. Surely some of the items there must be haunted. So how would you like to do a ghost investigation with me at Peddler's Mall? So I am going to kind of challenge myself. I am going to try to use my sixth sense. So, okay, I kind of figured I should give a little bit of a backstory. So growing up, I grew up in a very spiritual family, and by that I mean I was a cradle Catholic. Cradle Catholic is just basically I was born and raised into it. My parents are still very devoted Catholics to this day, and we were taught well. So as a family, we prayed a lot together, and we of course went to church every Sunday, and then we would go to prayer meetings every Wednesday, and we were surrounded by that. And sometimes, I guess if you're a praying family, like you kind of are exposed to, I guess, the supernatural. Funny enough, my parents have always been into like horror movies and paranormal shows, I'm sure, as you guys have probably picked up in my accent, I'm actually half Mexican. My dad is from upper state New York, and my mom is from Juarez, Mexico. I grew up in El Paso, Texas, which is in the border of Mexico and the United States. So, of course, up here, my Spanish accent is amazing. Bring me in the border and they'll just start laughing at me and saying, hablas como una güera. Por supuesto va a tener un acento. Mi papá es de Nueva York. So my parents have also had like some paranormal experiences, and a lot of my family members as well, both in my American side and my Mexican side. I actually talked to my mom today, and we talked about her Native American side. So her great-grandmother comes from the Huatl tribe in Durango, Mexico. She couldn't really remember what the name of the tribes were, so I just Googled Durango tribes and just started listing off the main tribes there, and she remembered they were called Huatl. Jameson, we're having a little bit of story time. So, another interesting thing about this side of the family is that her great-grandmother was a witch. And talking a little bit more with her, I found out that she practiced black magic. And my mom said that when she passed away, my grandmother and my mom were going through her things, and they actually found some books about black magic, and she found a spell about, like, I don't know, like sewing a toad's mouth shut. And she told me a new story that I've never even heard of before. She said when she was little, her great-grandmother used to babysit her a lot. Her name was Maria. My mom's name is also Maria. And Maria, my mom was about 7 years old, and she said her great-grandmother took her to a graveyard and apparently picked up dirt from one of the graves or something, like she called it dead man's dirt. And then, so apparently she had like an ofrenda, which is like a little table like to do like kind of rituals or whatever. And my mom saw the dirt, and of course her being a kid, like what kid doesn't like to play with dirt? She started playing with the dirt, and her uncle was there with her, and her grandmother walked by, and she kind of started freaking out. She said, "Did you touch that dirt? ¿Tocaste esa tierra?" And she was a kid. She said, "Yeah." And then her grandmother just said, "No te preocupes, ven conmigo." She said, "Don't worry, come with me." And she did a limpia, which is called the cleansing. I'm sure some of you guys have seen like people doing cleansings of like either herbs, or they've used eggs. Apparently eggs are supposed to attract negative energy, and apparently my mom said that she used this dirt to kind of curse someone. Anyway, so that's a little bit of my backstory from my Mexican side. As with me personally, so we have to come back inside because Jameson was complaining that he was itchy, and honestly it was pretty freaking hot outside, so that's why I took off my hat as well. So I've kind of always been exposed to kind of the paranormal, and just there have been things that happened in my life that I can't really explore. One, I remember it being in the middle of the night, and we had a radio downstairs, and it just started randomly turning on and playing music, and when I went downstairs, I unplugged it, and it still kept playing. So, and it wasn't one of those radios that, like, you could put batteries in it, so I just kind of was like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna go to my bed, and hopefully it'll turn off eventually. one of the weirdest encounters I've ever had was, so one night my mom was staying the night in Mexico, and so it was just my dad, us kiddos, and then like a family friend. And this was in the middle of the night. I slept, my sister and I shared a room, and I slept on the top bunk and she slept at the bottom. And I remember before going to bed, like she didn't have a blanket on her. I'm pretty sure it was around the summertime, so I mean, honestly, who would want to wear a blanket in the hot summer, you know? So, anyways, around the middle of the night, I remember waking up, and then I see a blanket that's just floating there, like it was like being held, and I couldn't, like, in a really weird way, and it was shielding, like it was shielding whoever was behind it. It was just floating there, and I remember it was one of my blankets. It was a purple blanket that had little aliens on it, and I woke up and I was like, Dad, and then I immediately fell back asleep. The next morning I woke up and my sister was covered in this blanket that I saw. Just like, I came up to my dad and I was like, Dad, that was really nice of you to cover Michelle with a blanket last night. And he said, what do you mean? And then I told him what happened. He said it wasn't me. And then I asked everybody else, and everybody else said that wasn't them either. And I was just like, cool. Well, I never really saw who was behind it. And I mean, with that blanket being like a twin-size blanket, it really was like just floating there. So yeah, that happened. And one of the few times that I can actually recall seeing a ghost was, I was probably like 12 years old. We were staying the night at my grandmother's house in New York, and I got up in the middle of the night because I wanted a bagel. My grandma, for some reason, had the best bagels and cream cheese. So there's like a TV room, and then a dining room, and then there's the kitchen back there. And I got up, so we usually slept in the TV room, so I got up and started making my way towards the dining room, and there was a rocking chair in the corner, and then there was like a man, probably an old man. He was just standing in the corner staring at me. I just looked back at him and just nodded my head and said, I don't want a bagel anymore, and just crawled back in bed and went to bed. And so probably one of the weirdest things that happened to me was when I stayed with my aunt and uncle in Maryland. So my aunt and uncle live between 3 different cemeteries, and they live in a very historical town that the Civil War soldiers used to cross through. The house that they were renting at that time belonged to a doctor around 18 something. They even found like old bottles and newspaper clippings in the attic at one point. So one summer I stayed with them, and I was around 16 at the time, and I used to stay up really late, like until 3 or 5 in the morning. Sir, I am trying to tell spooky ghost stories, and you're just interrupting me. Anyways, I was 16 at the time, and it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I swear I could hear somebody there. I had to bribe him with a phone. Anyways, so I was 16 years old. It was 3 or 5 in the morning, and I could have sworn I heard somebody walking up and down the stairs. So I just assumed that somebody else was up. And then, like, I look to my left, and like under the door I could see like a shadow, and like there was a vent out there, and it looked like there was like a shadow of a person standing right in front of the room. And then I was like, that's kind of creepy. And so I get up, I open the door, nobody there. I walked around and I was just like checking in on my cousins. They were asleep. My aunt and uncle, asleep. I looked down the hallway, nobody's there. I just remember being really afraid, and then I started praying Then I would say the following night, or the following, like the next couple days, my cousin Katie, she spent the night with her aunt and uncle because they needed to help babysitting. So I was basically in the room by myself. And again, it was around the same time, and I heard somebody walking up and down the stairs. Again, just turn off the light, and went to bed and started praying. One night, they were having their evening prayers, and they pray for the souls of purgatory. And in the corner of my eye, I felt like somebody was watching. Like, we were all sitting in the living room, and I saw some shadow in the corner of my eye, like a silhouette of a woman standing on the stairs looking at us. And then I didn't tell anybody at this point because I didn't want to scare them. Then I remember when Katie came back, I told her, I think your house is haunted. And she started laughing. Yeah, we think it's haunted too. And then I said, I think it's a woman, because I felt a presence of a woman, and I could have sworn I saw her standing in the corner, or at least her shadow. I felt her presence and a shadow on the staircase. And she says, I think so too. And then sometime while I was there, I kept hearing the name Catherine. And then I heard the last name, Catherine Alcott. And I told my cousin Katie, for some reason, I keep hearing the name Catherine, and then her eyes got huge. And she said one time she was in the house by herself, and she said she heard two men talking amongst themselves, and they kept saying the name Catherine. And I said, well, Katie, you know what this means, right? We gotta go investigate to see if this is accurate or not. And so we got her dog Bonnie and told everybody we were gonna take the dog out for a walk. And so Katie was like, which cemetery should we go to? Because like I said, their house is between 3 different cemeteries, and just my intuition said that way. And so the cemetery we went to, there's I think it was a Methodist church. Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's this white Methodist church, and there's a cemetery right next to it. And there's just something off about that cemetery. You kind of get a weird feeling there. And Katie said they've taken pictures out there in the past, and it's just completely erased all the pictures that they would take. And you know what? I started one time I took my camera out there and started taking pictures there, and she warned me about it, and I told her, oh, there's no way. I was like, there's no way. Why would the camera, why would it delete stuff from my camera? And sure enough, that happened to my camera too. And oh my gosh, it deleted some of my precious memories from my last trip with my grandparents in Santa Fe, and I'm just so bummed that I lost those. But yeah, I learned my lesson: never take pictures at a cemetery if you have a bad feeling about it. So anyways, we went to that cemetery, and we kept looking through the graves, trying to find this Catherine. And in that, of course, Catherine is a pretty common name, and I didn't tell Katie the last name. I just told her the name Catherine. So she asked me, is this Catherine? Is this Catherine? And I said, no. And I was just thinking in the back of my head, why? How much of a coincidence would it be that if we found this person? Guys, this is my first time ever visiting this cemetery. I don't know who the heck is buried out there. And then we kind of came closer to this weird looking curve, this strange looking curved tree. And there was her headstone, Catherine Alcott. And I started shaking. I said, Katie, this is her. And then her eyes got big, and I was like, I promise you that is the name I heard. And so we kind of told my aunt and uncle about it, and so they started praying for her soul. But yeah, that's the story of Catherine and our shared experience as a family. And apparently my cousins have had experiences too. And it's kind of funny because my uncle and my cousins work, I think they work at this factory or now, and they were talking to a worker there, and my uncle said, oh, we used to live in this house on the street. Do you know the house was haunted? And we kind of started laughing, and they started laughing. They're like, yep, we know. So that was like the biggest, like, I guess you could say, paranormal experiences I've had. I started having less experiences probably when I stepped out, and so I left the Catholic Church, I would say about 6 or 7 years ago. I really don't want to like talk about it, but something traumatic happened to me, and there was a lot of teachings I didn't agree with. Long story short, I just kind of stepped away, and since then I haven't really been much of a spiritual person. I was kind of between like being atheist or agnostic, but then again, like, then I kind of just stuck around being too agnostic, because like I've had things happen in my life that I can't explain, and I truly believe there is life after death. Actually, because I want to believe, because I've lost people who were close to me. I've lost my grandfather, my godmother, who was more like a mom to me, and I lost my first child. My first pregnancy. And so I truly believe that there is life after death. And so, like I said, I've kind of stepped back from kind of like the spiritual life. Like, I've had a lot going on in my life that I kind of, like I said, I had a lot going on with my life. I was married and then had a child. I worked full time, and then I got divorced eventually. Then I met Kyle, and then we got pregnant right away. And it wasn't until we moved here and close to the cemetery that I started having like kind of paranormal experiences again. And I kind of want to dive into that, because maybe I do have some sort of gift, or just because I've had things in the past, and maybe I should just open myself up to it. But I know I need to be careful with that, because I also believe there's good and evil out there, and I do believe there are evil things out there that were never human. I do believe that there are evil spirits that want to harm us, so I want to learn how to protect myself and my family. But anyways, that is my story, my personal experience, and this is why I kind of just wanted to start going back into paranormal investigating and just checking out the local history, and hopefully helping some souls cross over, because I can't imagine being stuck in a place for so long and not being able to find peace. So right now I am painting this birdhouse, and I am going to make this into a cute spooky flower shop. I'm just gonna kind of like put my own little designs here. Of course, I got my fall candle in the background. The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. A nice snack. And my emotional support animal. Right, kitty? He's a good girl. So this is my progress so far. I wanted to make the roof like a grayish blue. Yeah, I added some ghosts, some pineapples, carved pineapples, and carved watermelons. Just wanted to give that the summerween vibes. So here is my current process of this spooky birdhouse. I painted it light purple. Obviously, it doesn't look that great right now, and I'm trying to tell myself to trust the process. But yeah, this is what I have so far.